with physical practices of exercise, things like that. And some people coming out of the new age are really worried about stuff like yoga, but there's plenty of like Christian yoga groups, because they're what are they? They're fine. They're not thinking about it in the terms of this is a way for us to do this Hindu thing and you know channeling our energies and any of that stuff. They're just saying like, well, this is a good form of exercise. It's good for our bodies to move, and this is a type of movement that's good for your body for strength and flexibility and all these things. And so it's okay. And so some people might have a problem with the name.
I'm not sure that wasn't Paul snoring right there. For one thing, but I wanted to say that this is what the estuary is going to run into immediately. And it's that, like, up until now, the church has always been like, it's like they've been like, it's probably, I'm not saying it's demons, but it's probably demons. So, you know,
And you know channeling our energies and any of that stuff. They're just saying like, well, this is a good form of exercise. It's good for our bodies to move, and this is a type of movement that's good for your body for strength and flexibility and all these things. And so it's okay. And so some people might have a problem with the name Christian yoga, but if you say Christian calisthenics and Christian stretching and Christian, whatever, Christian CrossFit, and you listen to Chris Tomlin songs while you exercise, then it's like it's all great, and nobody cares about what the context in which people discovered the actions
yeah, I'm almost positive that Paul's asleep.
that are beneficial to their body because, uh, at this point we just know it's good for your body, and you're trying to do it in the context of your Christianity. And I think you understand that. Christianity is kind of the thing that absorbs and morphs all other practices into its sphere of influence, and it kind of sanitizes things, and it changes them into acceptable practices. And so I think, going back to the thing of like psychedelics, I don't think it's something.
Hey, was that not him snoring? Oh, here, listen real close.
Back to the thing of like psychedelics, I don't think.
At 13:33 in this video. Let's kick that over to the sound analyst team.
I think he's doing a breathing exercise while typing notes.
Okay. Okay. See,
He's
it's good to have someone to give the benefit of the doubt to people. Does he talk? Does Paul respond at some point in this?
I don't know. I
Him
went and looked this
watching
up.
Paul watch himself.
I want to check out this YouTube channel. I am not subscribed to it, but I found him.
Yeah, he made a meme video when Paul put the hat on. It's Michael Sartori, and here he made a meme video when Paul put the hat on. There it goes. Here.
This. I have to put on my pastoral hat. New hat. Oak Island started again, which I'm very excited about. My Calvinist God in his infinite wisdom has seen to take away my hair. The biggest tease on television. Got my glasses on. Is he wearing the hat to channel fishermen? Fishers of men. Ho ho.
Yeah, so I started following him after that, Like, oh, we got another player on the field. And now we got videos of him making Pastor Paul fall asleep. Ladies and gentlemen, we're supposed to be here with a chaperone, but this is quickly turning into Tyler and Gavin and Grim get stood up by Tyler.
He's probably putting the kids to bed.
Yeah, well, those scheduling concerns. But when people make a schedule, they should take those things into consideration. Maybe my kids will misbehave that evening. I should schedule it 30 minutes out.
It happens.
It does. Let's go watch my premiere I'm missing.
Okay.
Anyway, give it another view.
Sports and gardening, all the cultural.
Wow. Great, Grim. You're fucking muted, dumbass. Jeez, I'm gonna have to cut that out. Oh, maybe once the premiere's over, I can show people the editing process and start like cut shit out. This is brilliant. Brilliant. Wow. We were muted that whole time. You sorry sack of. Hey, why don't you go on your phone? Give me the extra view.
All right.
See, now I can just like know that this part is going to be clipped out and fucking relax. Hey, let's make the thumbnail while we're here. See, what you do is you get your old OBS thing set up the way you like it, and then you make sure that you selected the biggest thing that's outside the thing, and then you alt print screen. And then open it up in Paint, and you've pasted your thumbnail. You just got to trim out the OBS. Remember, Embody, there is no agency. We want what's best. Remember, Embody, there is no agency. Remember, Embody, we want what's best for you. The Andromenist, the Anadromist versus GrimGriz and the Lobster Monkeys, Part 2. Part 2, diversity versus diversity. The reason this exists, the reason my friends, monkeys, and people just watching is I made my commentary video, and then he did something that other people like Peugeot are really bad at, and he commented something meaningful. He said, Grizzly and Grim. Come on. No, wrong one. Grizzly and Grim. I might as well be the first to respond. I feel honored to get the teleological surrealist treatment. Grizz. Yes, I do remember talking to you well over a year ago. Not well, it's barely over. I should get you on my channel again officially. So yes, you should. Thanks for the commentary on the first 5 minutes of my video. And see, it's that first 5 minutes of my video part that lets me know that he's not an NPC anymore. He's a player character now. And so, thus, now exist part. I fucking forgot to roll savings throws for the video. I feel so bad. Parts 2, when I was happy to just never talk to it again, he decided he wanted to play. So we are going to play diversity versus diversity, or as I call it, power and diversity. And Tyler says he's here, sir. You're making him wait.
Not bad.
My video on.
Not bad.
Power play. Power play. Please ask the host to give me permission to record.
Let me see. More. How do I give you permission to record? Let's see. Zoom preferences. Recording. maybe I can just right click your.
I think you just make him a co-host too.
Okay.
Ah, yes.
More. Allow to record local files. Yeah. There you go.
There it is. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I am also recording, so I'll have edits to work with at least. How goes this?
I'm
Greetings,
doing,
gentlemen.
I'm doing well. How are y'all?
Yes. Yes.
You think it matters whether you look off to the right or to the left when answering that question?
Hmm.
I like to look up.
I try to look deep within. I don't know where my eyes go.
Well, you're always looking deep within, Grim.
As often as I can. Okay, so like officially, this is a mediation process or something, is it not? Because Gavin won't stop saying he puts demons in people's heads, and I'm not cool with that. And we're having a dispute about it.
A dispute.
Is that a character? Is that a characterization that you both agree on?
Not really.
All right, so let's get your version too.
My
But
version.
first, at least one of the things that I will attempt to invoke during this is the nature of the sacred. So, since everything is experienced through us, and really we're the source of all of this frustration and difficulty, it seems pertinent to remind us that if we do our best to keep this as sacred as possible, the interactions between us, then each of our experiences will be the best that we can find in whatever it is that we have. And that doesn't always mean roses and everything's peachy keen. But
It sounds good to me.
okay.
How about you, Grim? Do you agree?
What's
I
our
will
highest
attempt to
ideal?
be the truest manifestation of my character, of which I am capable.
What is your character? Like, I'm thinking of the alignment. You had mentioned alignment in Dungeons and Dragons, and like, what character do you aim at?
Well, I'm just gonna let the stalker types go to the reference video you just mentioned, because in that I also say which one I chose. So
Okay.
let's stay on topic here, sir.
You talked
Lest
about a
demons be
character.
in my head.
You talked about a character.
All right, so then we've gotten Griz's depiction of how we arrived here. What's yours, Gavin?
Okay. I can go into detail with a longer version, or I can try to keep it short.
Let's go with concise, and if it if it's seemingly lacking, then we can always expound it.
So I suggested an experiment that could be run in order to solve a problem, right? And the problem would be that people don't communicate properly. And so part of the experiment that could be run is that we practice communicating and participating, kind of like we're doing now. And the claim would be that that's the truth, and that I know the truth. And then in my mind, I thought of people who, when I say things like that, like I claim to know the truth, that they may think I'm wrong, right? And so I described that thing that comes up in their mind that thinks that the other person is wrong. I described that as a demon. And so, yeah, so that's the gist of kind of what happened. And then Mr. Griswold, he did not like this this technique that I used and the words that I used.
Okay, so let me ask then: is the demon the disagreement itself?
So,
Within the
there's
context of people coming together to speak with each other, right? If there's,
I think the demon is the thing that wants to be right and wants to win. And so when you're trying to win and try to be right, for whatever reason, you're sacrificing something that's more sacred, something that's more precious. And that's like, to me, like the reason why we end up with conflicts that can't be resolved, is because someone's trying to win.
I found the resolution to our conflict, except I'm on speaker view, so I can't see me. Thanks, Zoom. You're the best. Sorry, I gotta go to gallery. Okay. There's a easy peasy resolution to our specific instance that I see immediately, because your generic term of demon is vague and can refer to anybody in the Legion, but you've clearly specified it's Nicaea that you're having an issue with. So if you say Nicaea instead of demon, I have no qualm, and you can go about your merry way.
No, I've heard of Nicaea. So can you explain Nicaea to me specifically?
I watched a video where Jordan Peterson and John Vervaeke fumbled all over the spirit of Nicaea and this other spirit, and Nicaea was the competitive spirit they referred to in that video. So I figured it was a good term for this Venn of awarenesses.
yeah, Philia Nicaea, the love of victory, right? The love of conquering.
I've been possessed by that one before. I've been pretty competitive throughout my life.
Well, then okay, so will you accept Griz's olive leaf?
Let me elaborate because
quite
people have a
elaborate.
hard time understanding me. So I want to say some more on it real quick to see if that helps those people.
It's very generous.
Like the issue, like Gavin's issue, is that people respond in a weird way when he talks to them, because of the symbols he uses to communicate. And in this specific instance, the symbol demon has all sorts of it's meaning laden, it's mimetically dense. So if he says that, then whatever representation they have for that, and it could be any of those mimetic densities, is going to manifest in them. And it's silly and dangerous of him to use that symbol in that communication. Nicaea, however, is something only learned academic folk are going to have any kind of mimetic resonance for. And so the fact that he's using a different word and a word in a new way, it doesn't land, it doesn't evoke all of the demons he's scared he's evoking when he uses the demon term.
One thing that Grizz had said was that it was offensive. And I actually had a conversation with my aunt today about things being offensive. And the thought that I had, actually at first I had said, I don't get offended. That was the first thing I said. And then I pulled back. I said, that's a lie. I get offended whenever I notice that I get offended when I'm seeking my own glory. But as soon as I am trying to like give glory to God or something greater than me, then I don't get offended. Becoming offended, and so in a way there's another kind of demon there. With some people might call that the ego, and maybe it's the same Nicaea, this spirit that wanting a victory. But yeah, I noticed that today, and it seemed relevant to this conversation. And I also wanted to point out that So the broader context of this was Jacob has asked a question to Paul Vanderklay about how the Roman Catholics are treated. And he made reference to people no longer calling, that it is no longer normal for people to call like Jews the synagogue of Satan. And so there's this idea of some offensive language that's nested in that. And there's the question of what to do about it. And I think Paul's answer was, having this kind of conversation where we're trying to listen and we're trying to understand each other. And what's cool is that what we're doing right here is a microcosm of the solution. And also, I noticed that when we communicate in text, we're missing tone and we're missing facial expressions. And so you may have a spirit of love and you can say something and then it can be interpreted in a way that in a different spirit than what you had attempted to express. So text-based communication is very dangerous. And so this is why this kind of communication is preferable.
Objection.
Go ahead.
Objection. With regards to the danger of text-based interfacing, if you acknowledge what everything you just said about its nature and adjust your communication accordingly to that all tone and whatever is stripped away in the communication, you're less likely to run afoul of the limitations of the medium, yada yada.
But so I can be responsible for how I read text, but I can't be responsible for how other people read the text I create.
No, but you can keep in mind while you're creating the text that form of communication is prone to those vulnerabilities, and put that into your heuristic of how you use that medium.
And so I have a question, or a couple of questions, and maybe some framing that might help. It seems like when you're working with language, there are two aspects to it. There's a generator function. So there's a source from which it comes. And then there's an editor, somebody who pays attention to what came out and then tries to refine it. And I've noticed that when I'm typing, the source seems a little bit different than when I'm speaking. Like the emotions that are more readily summoned, it's like a slightly different hue, right? Maybe the Venn diagram of things being accessed more readily, not quite a full overlap. And so then whatever comes, is it also true that the editor is different? Is it the same editor? What's occurring there? And do you guys notice that same thing? Because with text, I have a lot of time. The pace of it is different. I have a lot of time to edit it, right? But then I'm reading it and I'm interpreting it through the reading rather than interpreting it through the hearing. So, like poetry when it's read or poetry when it's spoken, it's a difference.
Great segue. I wrote a poem tonight.
Ooh.
No,
You want to share it?
I do, but we don't have to do that yet. Wow. Before I interrupted, I had something to say. That's amazing.
You might come back. So generator function, editor.
Oh yeah. It's state-based consciousnesses.
Mm-hmm.
And like when you go to write is a different state than when you're slinging on Discord or on a text messages. Those all evoke different states of consciousness in you. So like if I'm going to make a blog post versus going to say something in Discord, and whatever state you're in when you see a message is influenced by the medium, and also something to take into consideration as part of the context of the communication wherever you're communicating.
One thing that came to mind was the we can't, it's hard to, for example, multitask. Some people say it's impossible. And so, sometimes if you really want to be listening, then you're not trying to think about the thing that you're going to say next, right? If one thing I like about what Grim and I did we did some co-respondence, as he labeled it, as we did conversations where we each recorded between 5 and 10 minutes and did a back and forth for maybe 12 videos and created a playlist. It wasn't, I don't know how entertaining it would be to an audience, but it was playing with a way of communication that recognizes maybe the risks that are in text and the difficulty, especially for someone like me, the difficulty in being able to participate in real time, going back and forth, kind of like a dance. Because when you can listen to something and pause it, slow it down, replay it 2 or 3 times, you actually can get more out of what the other person was saying. And so I'll go back and listen to our conversation sometimes, and I'll get more out of it, and then I'll want to do another response. So that's what came to mind when you were talking about a generator state and an editor state, is that being able to go back and edit it and refine what you wrote. I think that can be helpful sometimes.
Yeah. Well, so when I'm writing, it seems like I'm generating and editing, and I can do it from these different agent-based situations where I can consider myself in the context. I can consider either of you in the context, like you're both reading it. I have representations of Grizz and Gavin. I think, well, what would they think? And I can edit it. But if you're here with me, I'm speaking to you directly, and hopefully I'm receiving feedback from you of some kind, like the slight raise of eyebrows, right? Like that occurs, right? There's something that is transmitting some amount of information, and it's highly compressed, and I may not even be aware of it. So we definitely, there are arguments to be made about multitasking, but the brain is very obviously a parallel processor. It's consuming and processing information in a simultaneous, bewildering variety all the time. So there's a compression in body language that is extraordinary, that gives you feedback about how it's being received. And I think part of what that does is it allows you to offload that editor function, right? As long as you're receiving with humility the signal and able to trust it, then that lets you offload all that processing power, so you can function more with your conscious awareness state on the aspect that is generating and pulling in and synthesizing what needs to be created, if anything needs to be altered at all. So I mean, that's partly what we're assuming here, right? That things need to be altered, because if things don't need to be altered, then it's all just Nikea. It's all minerals bouncing against each other, and whichever one's more fragile is the one that shatters and the other thing wins over. But because we're ductile, we're pliable creatures, we're plastic, right? We can change our shape. Like that is in fact what constitutes good communication, is when you can be altered by the environment, which is us in conversation. So that's always what I'm trying to pay attention to, is when I should be plastic. It's not always the case. Right? Let's say an evil man was in this conversation.
Hey. You summoned
No
me.
aspersions. No aspersions.
You just summoned me.
Let's say, for instance,
but hold on. I want to throw in, before we get too far past what we're already talking about, is that another factor in the state-based considerations of the medium of communication is potential audience. And that the incident in question occurred in a Discord where the potential audience is everybody in that list on the right, and not just the people paying attention to the conversation. And like, if the mineral of calling, like saying what comes up in people's heads is a demon, is a mineral Gavin had, then I'm using my influence over him, a loan of agency maybe, to perhaps duct it towards something that is less potentially offensive to a greater audience.
yeah,
That
seems right.
but here's the thing is, so like I believe that I've noticed that when I become offended, it's because I'm doing a seeking of my own glory. And then for me, I believe that that I perform best when I'm not seeking my own glory. That's what I've noticed through, the empirical analysis of playing with the way I behave. And so I tend to believe that this might be the way humans should behave. And it's at least an experiment humans should try. And so offending people it has something to do with your goal. And, so if you want to avoid offending people, then, that might align with a goal of trying to be popular. Or maybe there's a goal of just, trying to do the baby steps first, if depending on your audience. So yeah, I can understand that there's an audience is important. It's nice to know your audience. And then I think there's also a question of the goal. And then there's this question of, what do you think about this idea that when you notice that you have become offended, that perhaps it means there's some self-work that could be done?
Well, there's always some self-work to be done, and that's what everyone, at least to me, avoids at all costs. So like you asking my brain to do things I don't want to do is by nature offensive. However, this whole seeking your own glory angle, I have a proposition for you. Check this out. What if it is the most glorious to be a living conviction of sin? Like, what if seeking your own glory becomes the glorification of the creator, rather than like being like, okay, creator, I'm going to take my understanding of what you want in this world and be my best manifestation of that. Like, I don't know how what I'm saying is any different, but like, because I'm still selfish in it. It's like, you know what, you're the best. And I know that if I'm going to be the best, it's by manifesting this. And so I'm still being selfish, but also living in the way you're trying to when you're not glorifying yourself. And you still get to be selfish. So
when you invoke the creator, you're invoking a higher perspective, a broader undertaking, right? So in the end, or in the final analysis. And it seems to me that Nikeia is necessary. We are, in fact, material substances that do come into conflict with other parts of the world. And that there's a certain way of viewing victory or overcoming of things, which has to do with that struggle between one powerful thing and another thing. So I often have to kill in order to maintain my life. It's just a fact of the world. I must consume the life essence of other things in order to be. This is a kind of victory that you can't really escape, right? But it's so natural to us, we don't think of it in those terms unless you're maybe a hunter-gatherer, and then it's a real literal stalking and killing. But we start to use these metaphors when we talk about debates, when we engage with each other. We still use these same exapted capacities, right? We take what once was used in one way and transform it into another arena. But I was thinking, what seems to be the evil quality of Nikeia is when it's no longer affording the ability to expand our horizons of the important. When we narrow our attention and it becomes stuck in a particular domain or slice of time, because usually what happens in a debate is you're saying, but what about this? Right? You're wanting to expand the horizon and say, well, maybe that's true, but what about this? And if you can't expand, and if you can't include, if you can't bring into perspective the additional truth of some other thing, then you're stuck in this narrow range. And it's damnation of a sort. That's it's a disembodied spirit that has no capacity to enact change in the environment anymore. And so it fixates on one particular loop and it stays there. So I can walk through the woods very authentically with no shoes on. But if I go and step where the vipers are, it would be much more valuable for me to have some thick shoes on, right? Be a less authentic human being to protect myself from the state of nature. Or I can just totally stay away from the den of vipers, right? I can walk barefoot all I want as long as I'm in the places where the snakes don't exist. And this seems to me metaphorically true in regards to human beings, because there's a great wilderness in each of us, including a den of vipers. And I don't know if we can excise them entirely. They're just a part of us. So I
Well,
take
sir,
I do.
You can go walking through a nest of vipers, or you can find yourself in a lion's den and just trust whoever decides whether or not you're going to get eaten.
That's true. Or you can be tossed there.
That's
Punishment.
That's enough of, okay, everybody. I've been threatened way too much in the last 2 minutes. I put the poem I wrote in the Discord. We were discussing this meeting, and I thought it would be a great demonstration of how things can be interpreted and misinterpreted via text if one of you two read that instead of me.
I see it.
Would you be so kind as to read that for us, Gavin?
I can try. Praying to Hitler will get you demonetized. Sounds like demonetized. So praying to Hitler will get you demonetized, but the angels are demons. Neath thinnest of guys, who then are the demons. Will you be surprised?
All right, Tyler, do you want to give it a go to demonstrate how different it can be interpreted?
How different it can be interpreted in tone?
Yes, or just like how different people reading a thing sounds different to people.
Praying to Hitler will get you demonetized, but the angels are demons, neath thinnest of guys. Who then are the demons? Will you be surprised?
Okay, and now what everyone's always been waiting for, my own reading of it. Praying to Hitler will get you demonetized, but the angels are demons under thinnest of guys. Who then are the demons? Will you be surprised? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. I'm running away now. Goodbye.
Oh, Chris.
He's out.
He's doing half-hour tops, right?
I guess. I didn't get the part, like I'd have to go back and listen to it. I didn't get the part where he's talking about the kind of the good that would come out of seeking your own glory.
Well, okay, so that's why I brought in the horizons aspect, because so especially in something like a Christian eschatology. Oh, death, where is thy victory? Oh, grave, where is thy sting? The idea of death being an ever-present enemy of life, and it being conquered by Christ in the end, is something that's embedded within this like final analysis. Well, sure, things are bad, sure, we die, but in the end, there's a resurrection and all good things will be returned. And that expansiveness is recognizing a particular circumstance that we would label bad, but then broadening the horizon until at some future point it becomes good, or bringing in a savior. But the idea is always that you're bringing something in. You're bringing something into the space that then makes it right again. And that ability to transform a circumstance or an environment by addition is the very nature of nature, right? It's change. It's an inversion. It's the possibility of transformation at all. And when you can't do that, when you can't transform anything, when you just get stuck in one mode, it's like performing the analysis and then stopping at that point. So I could look at a great battle, and I could say, zoom into it and then exclude everything else and say, what tragic loss of life, right? This was horrible. Like everything that occurred in here, right here. Look at all the people that died. This is awful. And if I stay right there, how else can I interpret it? Right? Like there's no glory in that. It's just people killing each other on the battlefield. But if I zoom out, if I allow for that, if I come out and say, oh, but because this was waged here at this time, a greater evil was averted out here. People often make this argument with something like nuclear weapons being utilized in World War II, right? That somehow we avoided far more death and misery over a prolonged, non-surrendering course of action with Japan than we did by bombing Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So, but this happens all the time. People do these little moments of analysis where they say, I'm willing to go through this bad thing in order for some future state or for some distant location to experience a better. And that's what that is doing, is it's broadening the horizon to turn a momentary fixation on the selfishness or the victory of that location into some deeper, truer glory of the whole. And if you zoom out far enough and do that with everything, and then land on the side of everything ending up with glory, that's one perspective of God, right? That's finding ultimate goodness, truth, and beauty in the whole process. But you don't have to wind up there. You can wind up in the kind of postmodernist position of nothing having ultimate meaning, or you can wind up in a kind of everything being evil. That this world is created by a demiurge. That there is no great goodness at the end, but a great evil. So I think that's what he was pointing to, something like that.
Sometimes I think that, so we're different people. We're all different people. And then, so I even think that sometimes the belief that I have, like I might be figuring out the right beliefs for me. And then whatever's right for me can change over time. And they might end up being different than what's right for other people who are different. So that's one thing I try to remember, like, so that I don't, make the mistake of assuming everyone's like me. But yeah, so sometimes there's truths that are relevant to me and my experience and what I see, like empirically for me, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're true for everyone else. So
right.
When I say I don't need to seek my own glory, that's a truth. That's my truth. But it doesn't mean it's everyone's truth. I was seeking my own glory in the past, and that led to where I'm at now. So I can't say that who I was in the past is somehow just bad. It's just that it was a part of a development process.
But we can do a little inversion there too, can't we? Or from a slightly different perspective, because what you're ultimately saying, it seems like, is I've discovered that this mode of being, when I labeled it as seeking my own glory, was ultimately bad, but that if I shift my perspective into a different way, that it will be ultimately better. And that is in fact how you obtain glory. Right? So you are, in a sense, seeking your own glory, but it's a different state than you were prior.
Well, like seeking my own glory would be, it's like, so when I become the way I become offended is whenever I perceive other people getting credit for maybe my work, right? And that happened a lot. Maybe it didn't happen a lot, but it did happen. And so the thing that I've done recently is I've decided to actually do the work and then give it to people. And I did that a little bit in the past, but I've been doing it increasingly, is trying to give, serve others and allow them to have the glory. And it seems to be more beneficial for the group and more beneficial for like in all kinds of aspects. It's more beneficial. It's like practical. So
Okay, but what you're doing there, right, is you're expanding your horizons and saying, from another perspective, if I do it a different way, I or the situation will be better overall. Right? There will actually be more goodness, more beauty, more truth in this circumstance if I reconfigure myself. So if you allow
Right.
for change to occur, right?
Right.
And that change being within the self rather than outside the self.
Right.
Yeah. So that is a dying of the self. Right? It's a part of you that you're willing to let die so that a new, better self can emerge.
Yeah, I feel like this is there's been this conversation that's happening. I've seen it's popping up on multiple channels about psychedelics.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, that what is key is this willingness to change, the intention to grow and change. And so it works in all of life at every moment if you treat every moment as if it, as if there is an opportunity to transform right here, right now, wherever I'm at. So, but for me, like it kind of like I had read Carlos Castaneda, and so then I had said, okay, I'm going to do a prayer before I use this cannabis, or I'm going to do a prayer before I use this psilocybin. And so it was the willingness to transform that was important. And it just so happened that I treated that thing as being sacred, and none of the other stuff was sacred. And then, and I think Don Juan actually teaches Castaneda that eventually you shouldn't need the plants. And I think it has something to do with seeing that everything is sacred and provides that opportunity to transform. But
yeah,
those are some of my words. They're not all Castaneda's words or Don Juan's words.
Well, it's embedded in all of these transformational practices. The psychedelic discussion going on is really interesting. It's been going on for a long time, well before the 60s and 70s. What is good and proper about changing our being, right? What is it okay to do to us? And what are the proper tools to utilize when doing that? I mean, it ranges from body modification, like changing the way your body looks, tattoos, scarification, circumcision. Like there's all sorts of ritualistic and or religious stuff related to the modification of the body. But there's also stuff that's related to the modification of the soul or the spirit or the mind. And each culture has a different conception about what is pure or what is holy as a usage for how to achieve these changes. So Jonathan Pajot might say something like, well, an ascetic state is good and pure for the evocation of these altered states, right? That you may have a visionary state or that you may have some ultimate transformative experience, and the route by which you get there is via this deprivation, right? And you can go rent some time in a business that handles the chambers that float you in water and shut off all the lights and the sounds, and sensory deprivation tanks will bring you to a rapidly altered state of conscious. And you can ingest something that does the same thing. There's a whole bewildering variety of these things. Pot's a hallucinogenic. It's a milder psychedelic substance, but there's no doubt that what it's doing, like all of them, is acting on endogenous structures with an exogenous chemical that they're already existent, right? We produce DMT at the very least in the pineal gland, but in mice, I think it's been found in all sorts of structures in the neurological tissues. It's meaningful that there are chemicals in the world that have such a profound impact on our conscious states. I think it's very interesting that very often what you'll see in the psychedelic discussion is a group of people who have never tried them saying a whole lot about what they are or aren't. And that seems folly from the start for me. I'm not sure how one is so confident about saying something one has never experienced, right? This seems a little strange.
Right.
And it's also true that I think people who feel like they don't need to change would and should be wary of not wanting to change, right? Maybe they are righteously configured to their environment. Maybe they don't need to have any sudden alterations of their conscious states. Maybe their choices and inherent capacities in life have pre-configured them and continuously configured them to be well suited to their environment. So why would they take the chance of, reshuffling that thing and coming out the other side as something different? So that those two sources seem to be generating a lot of the skepticism with regards to the use of psychedelics. But there are plenty of people in this world who, either through accident or trauma or just poor choice, have been configured in such a way that they're no longer suited to their environment. They're no longer suited to even themselves. And it would help them to rapidly reconfigure who and what they are. And how that is achieved, and that's certainly worth discussion within the domain of people who feel that need, not the people who don't feel that need.
It's interesting that there's also this idea, or there's a fear of like an actual gateway for spiritual entities.
Yeah.
And so for me, I like this approach of basically just admit, like for me, I see it as if we're all possessed by spirit and expressing spirit. And then like I like to believe that there's a Holy Spirit. Like I feel like I found it, like as I explored with cannabis, for example. I encountered unholy spirits and I intentionally rejected them. I recognized the fruit. I recognized I did not like the fruit. I did not want to continue allowing my mind to be possessed by that spirit, and looked for something better, and then discovered the Holy Spirit. And it wasn't through reading a book. It wasn't propositional. It was a participatory exploration of trying to build my own map through empiricism in an empirical way. And so, yeah, there's the people who think that that these are gateway drugs by which spirits can come into you. Like, I think they're right, but also so is everything else in life. And it's a mistake to believe that you aren't possessed by a spirit right now, and that you and with the biggest, like the one spirit is this kind of Nikea thing that maybe that's the one, is like this thing where you think you're right, and you don't need to change. And that basically means, to me, it kind of means that you think you're perfect, and you think that God doesn't have these things that are going to be good for you, that God doesn't have a plan for you to improve in the way that you're living. So I do have my baby decided to wake up and is not going back to bed. So I need to go maybe rock her. I'm gonna give her a few more minutes, but she's crying in the background.
Well, yeah, well, feel free to leave whenever you need to.
Yeah. Okay. I'm warning you, but yeah, I'm still here for at least a couple more minutes. Hopefully she'll fall back asleep. She does sometimes.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's interesting that these arguments are thousands of years old with regards to the nature of spiritual and material, which is more holy, let's say, right? Um, for a long time, there's been considerations that spirit is pure and good and true, and that matter is corruptible, and that it constitutes a kind of fallen state, which is why asceticism and the deprivation of passions and all of these things, where you're reducing your contact with what the body is and what it does in the world, is a way in which they achieve these higher states, which is really interesting, right? I think that this is, when you contrast this to the narrative that somehow modern conceptions of reality have to do with overloading meaning on the material. Well, this is also true when one is viewing matter as an impure state, right? So when you say taking a mushroom will open you up to these evil spirits, are you saying that the power to do that is found in the material state of the mushroom? You see, then you're overloading the meaning onto the mushroom, right? Otherwise, you have to assume that it's something already inside you. So is it true that the mushroom carries it within it, or is it true that it's already within you?
Yeah, I think it's already within you. So like, at least from my experience, it's that I would get stuck in a way, and with a certain frame, and then through a use of a substance, I could then become freed from my frame, and in order to just very easily move into other frames, try them out, taste them out, and then discard them, or and search, and I could take notes while exploring all these different frames. and and so but life can do that too. Right. And sometimes it's a little, it depends on your experience and everything. So that's yeah, I've got a mind altering experience going on with my child in the background. But
Yeah.
and so yeah, it's a learning opportunity. Those mind altering substances, I don't think they're necessary, but they do facilitate an experience of allowing your frame to disappear, and allow you to try out new frames, which is, I believe, kind of is necessary for transformation in general. So like, I tend to think like the people who believe that they are, that they don't want to change. It's actually the mind altering substance which facilitates the change, where you all of a sudden your frame disappears, and then you basically feel like you died because you were so attached to that frame that you had for so long. And then you then become more comfortable with allowing frames to be replaced by better frames. And so yeah, I kind of see that the people who are against it they tend to be the ones who might most benefit from it, given the proper dosage and setting and set, and doing the proper research, and so not doing it if you're already prone to schizophrenia or anything like that. So definitely be cautious. But I'm going to go try to rock my baby back to sleep. And I really appreciate this conversation. And I do think it would be nice to try to do the kind of conversation where we get to know each other better, kind of like Paul Vanderklay does when he talks to people. I think
Yeah, sure.
this thing, like trying to just understand people, and even when there are disagreements, just understanding the way people's brains work, trying to understand, like for me, like I like being able to try and understand my own strengths and weaknesses. And like, I really do feel like that is, and I felt this way for a long time before I even became aware of John Vervaeke. This is part of the process. This is kind of the thing that's missing in the world that we can participate in. Developing our ability to have good relationships, and developing our networks, developing the skills and demonstrating them. And I believe a lot of good will come out of it.
Yeah, I think so too. And I guess we'll do it after this. At some point, we'll schedule an opportunity to more fully ingest and digest each other, so that hopefully the best of each other can influence the best of each other. And
Yeah, I was listening. I like this word question. There's a quest. There's a question. Who are you? I know a little bit about you, but yeah, I don't. Obviously we know each other. We know ourselves better than we know each other. But yeah, it would be fun to have that kind of conversation. I look forward to it.
it would be fun to do that with Grizz too, huh?
Yeah, he seems to want to keep a fog around him and remain kind of mysterious. So yeah,
One of his
heard a
most
little
powerful
bit.
tools.
Yeah, it is a powerful tool.
Yep. All right.
All right, Tyler. I
to
wish
see
we
you,
could
Gavin.
do it longer, but
No, it was good.
all right. It was great. Thank you.
See you.
Bye.